Okay. All right, well, thank you. I'm Mark Barr, Manhattan Research. It's always fun when you have to follow a lot of speakers that use your data in various presentations. So I'm going to try and do my best to maybe give some color commentary. I apologize for the, I sound like I've been smoking for 50 years, battling a sinus infection on the tail end, but antibiotics for 3 days, so we're all safe. So what I'm going to take you through a little bit today, and I thought long and hard, like everyone else, probably 2 days before the deadline that the slides were due, about what value I could deliver to this audience. And it's not going to be tactical recommendations on the technology. We've had some great search engine presentations, great discovery, conversations on where the future of display is going. So what I'd like to do is take about probably 5 or 6 minutes of my time and go through a little bit of background on how this market has evolved. And it's always interesting because we always love those anecdotal stories, and they're great, what my wife did, what my mother-in-law did, and we all know, oh, this is what happened. It does help sometimes to step back and look at randomized population level, in some cases some global insight data to say, what's the market look like? And then I'll also turn that a little bit and tell you that also there's the market, and then there's also ADHD, parents that have a child with ADHD, and there's women with age-related macular degeneration. We're talking worlds apart. They're both consumers, but they have very different needs when it comes to the internet and social. And I'm also going to be comparing and contrast physician. I know we're not talking a lot about physician, but I want to show how distinct and how different these two audiences are when it comes to how they use the channel. And I am going to take you through data, and we're going to close it out in some insight into what consumers and what physicians expect from the industry when it comes to social. Okay? And I believe that I probably will have some time for Q&A because we're a little bit ahead schedule, and we'll see how that works. So real quick, I am going to be citing Manhattan Research data throughout here. We've been looking at this market for many, many years. I see a lot of clients in the audience, and I think, as everyone said, who are we and why are we here? I'm the president of Manhattan Research. We've been tracking digital health for a long time. Some clients would say really as long as it's been relevant. We've been there trying to figure out what's happening and why. You also have to understand who the clients are. We are not, I think as some press and media would like to portray us as, a voice of the industry of why this digital health needs to become more friendly. We track it. Do we work with a lot of pharmaceutical companies? Yes. And I think an interesting take on that is that's who came to us when we really started tracking this space in the early days, which says a lot about how this space really began. How did all these content sites begin? What really drove search engine advertising? The biopharma device diagnostic industry arguably drove a lot of the creation of what we call digital health today. A lot of these entrepreneurs you see speaking and talking up here would not have businesses if not for a lot of the folks out there in the audience. I'm going to take you through 3 studies. Consumer, we're going to be looking population level, not just online, everyone. I'm going to look at a physician study by the name of Taking the Pulse, and I'm going to take you through data from 2002, really focus more on 04 to 09, what happened over the last 5 years. And a great way to think about that is if you're regulating based on 04, 05, the world's a lot different. It changed a little bit for physicians. It changed a lot for consumers in terms of how they're using it and the millions that are on there. To start off with, sometimes we get these fun requests of come in and educate an executive that doesn't use email or really know what a computer is and explain the concept of digital health. This is one of my slides that I'll bring out. I've got about 3 that I can use in 5 minutes for someone that doesn't want to talk about this subject. What you see on this is the bottom is the percent of the population that uses the internet for health information. The y-axis is the frequency. So it's a very simple reach and frequency explanation illustration. Look at physicians up there. We don't have to worry about them. They're doing just fine. In fact, even back in 02, 01, they were virtually all online in terms of any reach, 90% plus. We're now in that upper quadrant. What's changed the past 5 years is frequency. This is a weekly indicator. In fact, if I overlaid on that daily, we're now at the point that 75% of physicians are online daily for professional purposes. They don't pull their drug reference information from a hard copy anymore. They use the internet. They use a mobile device. I'll come back to this a little bit later. 2 and 3 are actually actively using devices with a HTML browser capability. That's where they're getting their information today. Patients a little bit different, and I love this chart because it really puts it in context from a strategic perspective. Patients are very different than physicians. You see that needle moving very quickly. We added a lot of consumers over a short amount of time from 2004 to 2009. The further we go along that x-axis is more millions of people coming online. What didn't change? You didn't see the y-axis move a lot, did you? We added more people to the equation. We didn't increase the frequency. And this is what drives all these, again, entrepreneurs and people building all this content. We can't get them to come back weekly. What happens is, if you look at what drives most consumers to the internet, they've just been diagnosed, like the anecdotal stories we heard, or they've just been given a new prescription. These are, in fact, 2 of the biggest catalysts to drive you to the internet. They're pulling drug information. It's right up there with I've just been diagnosed and need the disease content. Where do we head going forward? I am a firm believer that we are going to start to continue. If you look at the continuum of I've been diagnosed, I need a treatment decision, so I want to manage my care, where we're finally starting to get movement in the internet is managing care. And this is a whole issue that really touches on the social, and I'll come back to. It's not so much about the promotional side of it. There's a big component of this that we really haven't talked about. It's customer service. It's customer care. It's meeting the needs from a customer service expectant. When a consumer is on the product and shows up in a social media realm, they may not be interested in trying to make a decision about entering into the product, building a relationship. They want to know how to take the product. They have customer service issues. And I think that really changes this from a promotional to a service relationship. I'll come back to that a little bit more. I believe we will get increased engagement, but it's going to take time. So let's look at the millions. This is our kind of standard millions charts that's out there. A lot changed over 2004 to 2009. And again, we're still making a lot of decisions based on what the world looked like just 5, 6 years ago. What this says at the top line, about 90 million health information consumers were online for health information back in 2004. We're almost at 160 million. That's adults 18 years plus, by the way, so we focus the research on. What really started to change over time, and I'll also give you this context to understand how things changed, back in the early days, we went for content, static content. We were looking for things that we historically got in books and magazines and other traditional media. We were going to the web to get that. What changed over the past couple of years? You hear terms like participatory, value exchange, information exchange. We want an interactive experience. You also can't forget the fact that we don't live digital health in isolation. 2/3 of this room used Facebook in the last 12 months. You use things like social networking. 80% of the people, probably more in this room, 90% of the people in this room engage with video on a somewhat regular basis on the internet. It's part of what we expect from the collective experience of the web today. It's no different for health. That's starting to drive what their expectations are in that 160 million. Look under. The bar underneath is the drug information bar. About half of the people that were online for health back in 2004 were online for drug information back in 2004. We're now at 2/3. The drug information seeking segment is growing much, much faster than the top line. It's not all just DTC. In the old days, you'd look and say, well, it's a lot of great DTC that's driving them to the web, and that's true. Fun little stat, you're about 8 times as likely to go to the web post DTC than call the 800 number, right? So it works. We drove a lot of people there, but what we're finding is the same way that physicians are tossing their hard copy material for drug reference, consumers are now doing the same thing. When they get a prescription, we now have 25, 30 million people. When they have a drug-related question, they're not going to the pharmacist or doctor. They go to the web for customer service type issues. You also see another one on there we talked about, and I hesitate because some clients, I think, want to make the internet the primary, the only place consumers go to. But you still need to go to the doctor to get health care, right? But we do have this emerging class of about 50 million. It's the first place you go to. It's the wife that was mentioned earlier. It's the mother-in-law that goes to the web first. It's convenient. It's easy. It's free in most cases, courtesy of those ad revenue and display ads that everyone's been talking about. That's what pays for all the content that we get so used